Welcome back to a brand new episode of Bambayash Besties. I'm your host, Rosa, and I'm so glad you're here with us today. Rachel won't be joining us tonight because she's currently en route to Puerto Rico. So she's going to be having lots of fun at a food and wine festival. But we have an incredible show lined up. So I'm super excited to welcome today's guest, Carley Rojas Avila. She's a bilingual journalist, editor, and creator who is now based in Medellin, Colombia. Carley has written for major outlets like Forbes, Travel and Leisure, covering travel, cuisine, and culture across Latin America and the Caribbean. So today we're super excited to be talking about Medellin. Carley, originally a travel journalist from New York, now calls Medellin home and brings a unique perspective on why this vibrant city has been named one of the top places to visit this year by National Geographic. She'll be sharing insider tips, must visit spots, and what makes Medellin such a special destination. So, welcome, Carley, to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm super excited. So, I am from the Dominican Republic, but my husband's parents are from Colombia. So, I feel Colombia is like a second home, but I've never been to Medellin. So, I'm very, very excited to kind of hear all of your insider tips.
Yeah, for sure. Excited to share. I've been in the city now since about June of last year. So I'm coming up on a year. So it's not too long, but definitely long enough to kind of get a good feel for the city. So.
Amazing. So before we get started, do you want to tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and what sparked the move from New York to Medellin?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I'm a journalist. I write freelance for a bunch of different outlets, and have primarily covered Latin America and the Caribbean. I have lived in Latin America at different periods of time over my life. So after college, I lived in Ecuador for 2 years. I spent about a year in Argentina. I spent a bunch of time in Cuba and then also just traveling around the region in general. And the last couple of years, I've been based in upstate New York, and which is where I'm originally from. And I was just kind of feeling like the itch to get abroad again. And I think also covering the region in my work, it is much easier to do that now being based in Colombia than being based in upstate New York. So yeah, I took a work trip here in February of last year when I was kind of in the process of thinking about where I wanted to relocate to. And I just felt it instantly. I kind of am like a little bit woo woo where I'm like, I have to feel something. I have to feel like the energy. And I definitely felt that when I got here. I had been here, I'd spent a month in Medellin about, I want to say in college at some point. And coming back, I was just like reminded how great the city is. And so yeah, decided to kind of relocate in a more permanent way.
That's amazing. So it's funny because my aunt, she hosts group trips and she has like a group of women. They're like in their late 60s, early 70s. And last year she was like, oh my gosh, I have to go back to Medellin because my group of ladies, they want to go back. And I think in 2025, she went there like 5 or 6 times, which was like a record for her because the group was like, we have to go back, Larita. Like, we just love Medellin. And like you said, you just feel like the energy. And I feel like in Latin America, at least from my personal experience, especially in Colombia, the people, they're so welcoming and like you kind of feel like you've known them forever. So it definitely, I would assume, makes the transition so much more easier.
Yes, for sure. I definitely agree with that. I think when I was living in New York, I feel like I had maybe like one or two friends and that I made over like a long period of time living there, like a couple years that I was living in the same place. And here I feel like I have like a huge community of friends in no time. Like it's just been so easy to adapt and people have, as you said, just been so welcoming that I think it's really made a big difference in helping me adjust and also helping me feel like this is home.
That's amazing. Yeah, I feel like adult friendships back in the States is a little bit more difficult. I feel like we're always like on the go. In
Yeah.
other countries, you kind of feel like things kind of slow down a little bit more.
For sure. Totally agree with that.
So I know Medellin has been getting a lot of global attention lately. So from your perspective, what makes it stand out compared to other destinations within Latin America?
I think that the city has gone through such a transformation in the past couple of decades, which is really remarkable. Back, I think in like the 80s, it used to be like one of the world's most dangerous cities. I think a lot of people know that, unfortunately. But if you're here now, I mean, of course, there's areas of insecurity and like every city in the world, but I truly feel totally safe here. I feel like it's a city where there's so much growth happening so quickly. There's so much development in terms of like the culinary scene, tourism, hospitality. Like there's just so much happening at all times. And I think you used to kind of have to talk about that transformation of, this is what the city used to be. It's growing and changing, but now I think there's so much to talk about in terms of the new things that are happening that there is just an exciting time to visit for sure. I think it's also growing more popular as a destination because it has so many kind of ways to make it fit with whatever style of travel you like. So there's a lot of art and culture for people that are into that. Adventure travel, people go like mountain biking in the hillside and like throw themselves off mountains and paraglide and like all of those type of fun things. There's lots of delicious food. So it kind of like checks all the boxes of what people might be wanting from a trip in one place. So I think that's also helped make it so popular so recently.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point too. I remember the first time I went to Colombia, it was probably like 2008. I remember even like my own mom, she was like, it's kind of dangerous over there. And I'm like, Mom, it's dangerous like anywhere that you go, even Dominican Republic, there's places that you would not dare to even walk. But I had such an amazing experience. But I definitely have seen the transformation and definitely the tourism booming when the last time that we went, I think it was probably around maybe 2018, like right before the pandemic. And we visited Cartagena and it was very, very busy, which is great for the local economy. So I feel like Medellin now is kind of rising in popularity.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I mentioned that I spent a summer here. I think it was back in 2012, I want to say, or 2013. Even just the change in that period of time in the city was mind boggling. It's profound. And so, yeah, I think it's changing rapidly in a good way, mostly. So I think that it's an exciting time for sure to be here.
I love it. I definitely have to go. It's like on my bucket list. I tell my husband, his dad lives out in Armenia. So I'm like, we need to make a visit soon. So
Yeah. And that's like right in the heart of the coffee growing region, too. That must be beautiful.
yeah, it's so nice. It's like the landscape and everything. It's like beautiful. Definitely worth the trip. I feel like everywhere that we have gone in Colombia, we've gone to like Cali, Bogota. And like you said, there's something there for like everyone. So it's definitely a country that everyone needs to visit at least once.
Agree. Totally agree.
I'm ready to go.
Let's do it.
So, what would you say for someone who's visiting for the first time? What are some must do experiences that really capture the spirit of the city?
That's a good question. I have been thinking actually a lot about this recently because my parents are coming to visit me here for the first time
Nice.
in, I think, like 2 or 3 weeks. So I've been trying to like plan a little itinerary for them, fun stuff to do. One of the coolest things to do, I think, is taking the cable car over the city. So there's actually a couple different sections of cable cars and people use them to like get around. It's not just like a tourist attraction. Like there's actually, it integrates into the rest of the transport system, which is really nice. And you can take the cable car up to a park called Parque Arvi, which is really beautiful, and hike around there. Or you can just take the cable car to like get the view. So I
That's
think
what
that's
I would
probably what
do.
I'll be doing with my parents. We'll just be taking the cable car and kind of like seeing the view. It's really beautiful. You see the whole valley that the city is located in. That's definitely, and that's a super affordable too. So that's like a great way to kind of kill two birds with one stone. Another thing that a lot of people like to do is visiting Comuna 13, which was a very troubled neighborhood in the city. And it has had a huge turnaround in terms of now it's kind of like a center for art, a lot of like dance groups, a lot of kind of like viewpoints that people take over the city. So it's really, I mean, in terms of telling the story of the transformation of the city, it's a really interesting place to visit for that reason. I also recommend going to El Centro. It's kind of like the center downtown area. There are some parts of that neighborhood that can be like a little bit kind of grittier, I would say, but there's a lot there too in terms of like a museum dedicated to Botero with a lot of his paintings and like a plaza with a bunch of his sculptures and stuff in it. There's a lot of good places to eat. I write a
Yes, I'm
lot
always
about
there for the
food.
food.
I write a lot about food and yeah, there's just so many good places to eat. One of my friends has a kind of like it's like a tour company, but she only does one tour. She does it of one of the main markets in town. Her name is Melissa Ospina, and she gives a tour of La Minorista market, and she kind of is like these are all the fruits and vegetables in Colombia, and you can try them all, and it's really interesting. I think also too, if you have time, it's really cool to visit a coffee farm. There's actually Medellin is kind of like on the edge of the coffee growing part of the country, but there's a couple coffee farms that are really close to the city. One is called Capilla del Rosario. It's like 15 minutes up the hill. Basically, you go up this like very steep hill to get there, but then you have this beautiful overlook of the whole city, and they kind of walk you through like the coffee making process and the process from the coffee bean all the way to the cup. So it's a good way if you have like a half a day to do something like that too.
I love it. It sounds like there's, like you said, there's something there for everyone depending on their interests. Now, would you say, in terms of, let's say, like a solo woman traveling to Medellin, would it be best to maybe like book with like a tour company?
I think that totally depends on your comfort level. So, like, I do recommend if you can spending time with locals. Like, I do think that there's a lot of value in connecting with a local guide for maybe parts of the trip. Like, maybe if you want someone to kind of like walk you through the city history when you're downtown, it's a good way to get like local recommendations for things. I don't think it's necessarily a city or a destination where you need like a full itinerary booked, unless that's kind of like the way you like to travel, just because it's easy enough to get around. Like, there's Uber. I don't know. I don't really usually travel that way with like a full itinerary booked and tour guide, but I think it's nice if you can kind of piece things together in different experiences that do get you to connect with locals.
I love that. That's definitely one of the things I'm personally trying to do a little bit more of, is kind of go with a loose itinerary when I go to a new destination, because I'm very like type A and I do have to have like a schedule. But now I find it like so like beautiful just to be able to just wander around and take recommendations. I recently went to Italy and I did a walking tour, and the girl that was leading the tour, I was like, listen, give me all of the places to eat, like your good spots. And I follow her recommendations. I went in there blindly and I had such an amazing time, and I was kind of able to immerse myself in the city. So I feel like Medellin is like the perfect spot as well to kind of be able to do that. Just kind of get lost in the streets, meet new people, eat all the amazing food, because Colombia has delicious food.
It does, it really does. I totally agree with that. I think it's a really good travel tip for really anywhere you're going, especially if you can book a tour like that at the beginning of your time somewhere, then you can get, like you said, like the restaurant recommendations, like, oh, this is a tourist trap, don't go here, like that type of thing. And it can kind of help tailor your trip. I definitely, that's like a top tip of mine for sure, for here or for anywhere really that you're traveling.
Exactly. You're getting that insider tips. And like you said, you're steering away from this tourist trap and actually feeding back into like the local economy, because I think that's the biggest problem is with over tourism, that sometimes it kind of takes away from the charm of the city, and the locals are not really profiting from the tourists. So it is nice when you're able to kind of give back to the locals.
Yeah, for sure. Totally agree.
So, what would you say, as someone who covers food and culture, what are some of the local dishes or dining spots?
I think there's a bunch. I mentioned doing a market tour. I think that's a really good way, like I said, to kind of get an idea of the different ingredients, like fruits and vegetables and stuff. There's something, I forget the statistic, but I think it's something like in Colombia, you can eat a different fruit every day for 3 years without repeating because there's
Wow.
so many. So, like, stuff like that, like, you can go into restaurants and read menus and have no idea what you're reading because it's, like, these crazy fruits, and vegetables and things.
That's
I
amazing.
like yeah, I like doing things like that, and that's definitely something that I recommend to people who are interested in the food side of the city or the country in general. What else? There's a lot of kind of like classic dishes, I think, that are from here, from Medellin, like the Bandeja Paisa is really like a well-known one, and bandeja is basically like a tray, and so it is essentially just a tray of food. It's like beans, arepa, chicharrón, like a fried egg, avocado, like basically anything that you can think of, it's all
Yeah.
together in one plate.
It's deliciousness, but I wouldn't suggest eating that every day.
No, absolutely not. Yeah,
Your
definitely one
cholesterol is
time,
gonna
even like
spike.
yeah, getting one and splitting it with
Yeah.
someone,
That's what
honestly,
we
because
normally
yeah, there's so much, but they're delicious. Like, if you're here, you have to try it for
It's a
sure.
guilty pleasure.
Yes, absolutely. I went to a place recently for the first time called ajiacos y mondongos, which those are both two very popular dishes here. Ajiaco is kind of like a chicken soup type thing that's very, very good. And then mondongos are like it's like a tripe soup, and it sounds weird, but it's actually very delicious. It's kind of like it was kind of like a local spot, and it's definitely one that I'm thinking of now to return to and with people that are visiting too, because I think it's like an affordable but very high quality place to get those like classic dishes. In terms of places that I think are kind of being like more innovative with food currently, there's a lot. But one of my favorites is called Carmen. Um it's named after the founder, Carmen. Is half Colombian, but was raised in the States, and then she moved back to the city. I think like 15 years ago at this point. The restaurant has been on like Latin America's 50 best restaurants list. And also it has a bar inside of it called Bar Carmen, which is on the list of the world's 50 best bars. And they have such amazing drinks. They have one with like Amazonian ants on top of it, which sounds weird, but
Interesting.
it's so good. So yeah, that's a favorite place. Sambombi is like a bistro style place that I recommend. And they use a lot of local ingredients. They have a wine bar that just opened called Badavan, which is really good. It's in a different location, but it's like managed and run by the same chef. What else? Oh, if you go downtown, this is kind of the plan that I always recommend for people going downtown to kind of see the sights. And then there's a restaurant called Salon Centro that's uses all local ingredients, very like innovative cooking, but it's still affordable. But it's just like a great place to end like a downtown city tour for lunch. So I recommend that. But
All
yeah,
these
I
places
like,
sound amazing. I'm like, I'm ready to just book a trip and go.
yeah, you have to. Yeah, I'm like, I need to be spending the mornings in the gym so then in the afternoon I can go and eat all these delicious
I
food.
know, eat all the arepas, like, I love bandeja paisa, and I like all of the pastries. I'm just like, "Oh my god." When my father-in-law comes over, there's, like, a Colombian bakery, and he'll come in and bring, like, all of the treats, and I'm like, "Please, like, don't," because, like, I love them, and I'm going to eat them all.
Yes, it's dangerous for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so many like I didn't even talk about any of like the breads or whatever. There's like so many like pan de yuca, pan de bono, like all yeah, it's very tempting.
It's so good. So you would not be disappointed when you go to Medellin because it sounds like there's so many different places to eat. And I love too, like you said, a lot of the local history behind some of the restaurants because I love eating good food, but I don't like always going to like those like mainstream restaurants. I'd rather go somewhere that's a little bit more local and has a little bit more of a connection and history to the city.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a lot of that here. I think a lot of chefs are reclaiming local ingredients. I think for a time it was kind of like fine dining meant like steakhouse or like Italian food or kind of like these trends from other countries. Whereas now I feel like in Colombia, fine dining is trending more towards like local ingredients and traditions, which is really refreshing, I think, and exciting. So
Yeah, I love that. The one thing I cannot get behind is aguardiente. So that's like one of the drinks that I'm just like, everything else Colombians do, it's great, but aguardiente, just keep it away from me.
yeah, I don't understand the appeal of it. Like the anise flavor, it's very yeah, I don't understand why, but
Yeah, I know it's like a local thing. So,
yeah,
but
for
aside from that, I mean, again, I love being able to discover like hidden gems. So, what other like popular spots or hidden gems within Medellin do you recommend for a first timer?
ooh, other hidden spots. I think in terms of neighborhoods, there's a few good ones. I think a lot of people will come and they'll stay in El Poblado, which is a neighborhood that's kind of a little bit up in the hills. That has a lot of really good restaurants and nice places to stay and boutique hotels and things like that. And then maybe like visit El Centro to kind of see some of the sights. I actually live in a neighborhood called Laureles, which, fun fact, it was actually named by Time Out magazine as the best neighborhood in the world, I think like 2 or 3
Nice.
years ago.
You have good taste.
I don't know necessarily like why. I mean, I love it, but I feel like that's kind of a big shoes to fill after you've gotten that award. But it's kind of like in the middle of the city in between El Centro and Poblado. So I think it's actually a good place to stay if you don't have a lot of time because you can kind of get places more easily. There's a lot of cafes, a lot of restaurants. It's very walkable. It's in like the flat part of the city. A lot of the city is like up in the hillsides of the mountains, but Laureles is in the flat part. So it's very walkable and easy to get places, very safe, has like a good amount of liveliness and things happening, but also can be quiet. So it's a good mix, I think. There's also another neighborhood which is really interesting called Perpetuo Socorro. And It used to kind of be like an industrial area in the city, but it's been going through a process of like getting the industrialization outside of the city for pollution reasons. And the neighborhood has been transforming because of that. So now it has like a lot of cafes and restaurants, a lot of art galleries. There's a place called La Fábrica de Café where you go and like learn about the coffee making process, and they also have a social aspect where small coffee producers can bring their coffee beans and get them toasted there and like kind of learn more about the process and improve their methods, which is really cool. Yeah, I'd say that there's like a lot of kind of like neighborhoods that people have to discover still. Those are two that I would definitely recommend.
They both sound like there's a lot happening, which I love that.
Yeah.
Especially like you said, the revitalization of like the neighborhoods and just drawing a new crowd in to explore the area, which is great for, again, to support the local economy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I know at the beginning of the episode, we kind of chatted a little bit about how Medellin has gone through a huge transformation over the years. But how do you see that history shaping the city travelers and their experiences today?
Yeah, I think that a lot of people come and will only really have that perspective of the city or know about the city best from kind of its past, which I think is sad. And like I kind of mentioned in the beginning, I think there's so much more happening here now. I do think that if you come with an open mind and willing to see what's new and what's happening, it can be a really powerful story of transformation. I mean, it is, but I think that to live it and to experience it is a different thing. I mean, you definitely see things like different tourist experiences that are based around the city's past. Like, for example, if you go to Comuna 13, which is like a neighborhood that kind of had like a lot of revitalization happening after all of the internal conflict, like you'll see places that are selling like t-shirts with Pablo Escobar's face on it. And like that, I kind of don't
Yeah, do
agree
not judge by
with.
Colombia by the show Narcos. So
Yeah, yeah,
it's
I
much more
think
than that.
yeah, like, there's people that will sell those shirts because they sell, and, like, I understand that, but it's also I know so many people now and have heard so many stories of, like, people's lives being directly impacted, of course, by that period of time. So, I think that the history of the city is definitely impacted traveler like, it kind of shapes your understanding of the place when you come here, but I do think that there's so much more here that it doesn't have to just stay in that transformation story. Like, you can come here and just eat really good food or come here and just do adventure activities and appreciate the mountains and all of the beauty that there is. So, yeah, I think it's growing and changing in a really beautiful way.
Hearing that because again, I feel like certain destinations they kind of have like a bad or negative perspective. And again, like you said, you have to experience it firsthand and make your own informed decision because like you can't believe everything that you read or you see online. So firsthand experience, it's gonna definitely make you fall in love with the place.
Yeah, agree. And I think that's important. And another important reason why spending as much time with locals as possible or getting like a local tour guide, at least for like part of your trip, can be nice. Because it can put those things in context. Whereas like you can hear those stories of like, oh, well, my life was impacted in this way. And kind of like it takes the sheen away or it takes kind of that like anti hero experience away that you get kind of in like those shows or those books or those stories that you've heard about the country.
I love that. So what would you say would be like a sweet spot for someone who's like exploring Medellin for the first time? Like how many days would be ideal to kind of get a sense of the city?
That's hard. I'd say probably at least like 3 or 4 days. I think you really need even like 4 or 5 if you wanna kind of, as you said, come with less of a plan and just take it slow and see how you feel. I think maybe after 4 or 5 days, you'll probably wanna do at least like a day trip or a weekend trip outside of the city just to kind of get that other perspective of the region. But I think if you have 3 or 4 days, you can kind of do the major things and feel like you aren't rushing too much.
That's good. I know usually when I travel, I have like limited time and I've looked at other like tour companies and they'll kind of like couple like Cartagena and then do a couple of days in Medellin. So if you're planning to go, let's say for like 7 days, you get a little bit of like the coast, the beach side, and a little bit more of the city life in one trip, which is nice.
Yeah, and it's so easy and really affordable, actually. The flights between here and Cartagena are very affordable, so and quick. I think it's, like, one of those flights where you go up, and as soon as you get to, like, the max altitude, you start going back down again. So, yeah, and I think that yeah, I think if you combine Cartagena and Medellin, you get, like, a really good kind of coast and then mountain experience in one.
Exactly. Get a little bit of both worlds, so which is always nice. So for our listeners that are planning a trip, what are your top insider tips, things most tourists wouldn't know about but totally should?
Sure. So one of them starts really before you even arrive. The airport in Medellin is known for having very long immigration lines. So I'd say plan for at least an hour to be spent in the immigration line. I've gotten pretty lucky, I think, when I've flown in and out. I've heard people being in line for like 2 to 3 hours, which sounds crazy. So I always tell people, like, if you can get an upgrade to like the front of the plane, like that's you would want to do it now. If like make sure you go to the bathroom beforehand, make sure you have water, like download a podcast and just like put it on while you're standing there. Also, I know people, I don't think I've never like gone to this extent, but I know people that like to, if they're entering the country, they'll fly into Bogota first and then do a domestic flight to Medellin just to kind of like avoid that. I don't think that that's necessarily the route that anyone has to go, but I do tell people to be aware of how long the immigration line can be. Let's see, other
That's
tips.
definitely a good one because I think when we went to Costa Rica and it was the one time that I was going to go to the bathroom, but they turned the seatbelt sign on. And then I was like, I missed my window. I was like, you know what? Let's just go through immigration. I'll go after. And we waited like 3 hours. And I looked
Yeah.
at my husband and daughter. I was like, oh my God, hold my spot. I will be back.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
now I time it.
They actually installed in the airport. I saw when I flew in last time, like a water station, like in the middle of the line because people were like needing water. But like you could have just like hired a couple more immigration officers. Like you decided to pay for a water station, but anyways,
At least they're keeping the passengers hydrated. So that's a plus,
I
I
know,
guess.
right? Yeah, so that's definitely a tip. I think another would be the city, as I mentioned, is quite hilly in many areas. So if you are looking at it on something on Google Maps and it looks close, it might actually be a full on workout to get somewhere. So I generally say assume it's going to be a more challenging walk than you would probably think it is. But it's easy enough to get around. Uber is like very affordable here and like very safe and present everywhere. What else can I say? So the city is known as the city of eternal spring, but I always recommend that people bring clothes for like all weather. Even just like within being in this valley, there's areas of the city that are a lot colder than others. I live in like one of the warmer areas of the city because it's kind of like at the bottom of the valley, but whenever I go up to like Poblado, I always have to bring a jacket because it will get cold, especially at night. So I always recommend that people bring kind of like a springtime wardrobe, but also with things in case it gets really hot or cold. Um, so yeah, also I think to not trust the weather app too much. It's one of those places for a lot of the year where it'll show that it's like raining every day of your trip, but it's really just like there could be like a 20-minute rainstorm in the afternoon and it's like beautiful the rest of the day. What else? I think other tips? I think those are pretty much the primary ones. I usually like to tell people too if they have time to like get out of the city a little bit. I think there's a lot of mountain towns right outside of the valley that are really beautiful to visit.
It sounds amazing. Now, would you say for someone that doesn't speak Spanish, is not knowing the language going to be a challenge for them?
I feel like a good amount of people here speak some English, probably not as much as other places that you might travel. I don't think the city has had that strong of like a tourist presence for long enough for it to be something that people really have started to invest in. I think nowadays there's so many ways to kind of like get around that language barrier. So even if you have like Google Translate on your phone, it's helpful, or like you can use it to scan menus or things like that. I don't think it's necessarily too big of a challenge, but I think that you have to, if you don't speak any Spanish, for example, you should at least learn a couple words like hello, how are you? Like those type of things. And then come with a plan for like how to translate and how to get around outside of outside of English.
Yeah, we always say it's always good to know at least some key phrases in the local language of the place that you're traveling to. And I feel like Colombians in general, they always want to be very like helpful. So even if like you don't speak Spanish, they don't speak English, like you'll figure out some way somehow, even through like sign language,
Yeah.
pointing, you'll figure it out. So I feel like you definitely will be fine. But knowing some keywords will definitely go a long way.
Yes, agree, totally agree.
So, what other misconceptions do you think people have as far as traveling to Medellin?
So we've talked about kind of like the city's past. I feel like we've touched on that for sure. I think another misconception that is interesting to me living here now is a lot of people associate it as like a big party town. And I think it is to some degree.
That's
I
I'm
think,
not gonna lie, that's the misconception I had because I
yeah.
had a couple of friends and they would talk about Medellin and they would post things on socials and I'm like, yeah, partying is not really like my vibe. So like I don't know.
Yes, yeah, I think that people that have kind of any type of, like, insight into Colombia, like, associate Medellin with, like, a lot of partying and clubs and stuff, and that definitely exists here, and I actually read recently, and I thought that this was interesting, that one of the reasons that it does exist is because it was a way for people to kind of, like, let go of the challenging part of the city, like, kind of, like, to use a Spanish word, like, desahogarse
Yeah.
of, like, everything that was happening, like, kind of release. So that's kind of it was interesting for me to hear that because 'cause I'd never heard that before. It does exist for sure, like, there's clubs, there's bars, there's, like, all types of different scenes, but, like, I've lived here for almost a year now, and I don't really, like, go out, and I don't look for that, and I don't think it really, like, impacts me in any way. I think there's so much to do and so many other things that if you don't want to party, like, you definitely don't have to, like, there's enough variety now where if your idea of going out is, like, getting a nice meal and sitting at a beautiful bar, like, you can do that. You don't have to be, like, in a club, really.
That's more up my speed.
Yeah, same.
Like, those sweaty days being in a nightclub, that was like in my 20s, not anymore.
Yes, agree, totally agree.
Oh my gosh, I'm so ready to like book a trip. I'm telling you. I'm just like you sold me with the good food, so I'm like I'm already like mentally planning my trip there.
Yes, for sure, come visit.
So, what would you say is the best way for travelers to experience Medellin like a local, other than some of the tips that you already given us?
Think that a lot of foreigners, as I mentioned, will come and will just stay in El Poblado, which is kind of like the place where there's a lot of hotels and restaurants and things. I think visiting any of the neighborhoods that I mentioned previously will kind of show you a different side of the city. I think also, even if you can get out of the city slightly, like go up more in the hillside or visit like a nearby town, it kind of gives a different perspective of what it's like to actually live here than just kind of like the tourist traps. So in the hillside outside of the city, there's a couple places I would recommend. There's a restaurant called Ritual, and it's kind of like right at the edge of of the valley, kind of before you go out into the mountainside. It has a beautiful view over the whole city, really good food. There's another one too called Casa de Nadie, which I would also recommend. Really good drinks, delicious food also. It's just nice to kind of like feel like you're looking over the city while still being close to it. I think it gives like a different perspective. There's also a new restaurant that is kind of near the airport. It's maybe like 45 minutes, an hour outside of the city, but I think it's worth going to, especially if you can kind of time it with other things that are outside of the city. It's called Hesto, and it's truly like going and eating in someone's like mountain house. The chef lives right next to the restaurant and he's like won all these awards. It's like a really beautiful experience. So yeah, it kind of combines my love for food with also my desire to see areas outside of the city too. So
It
it's
sounds
a thing.
amazing. And the fact that you also get to do this for work, right? Because your focus is travel. And do you do a lot of like food and drink writing as well?
I do, yeah. When I got started writing, I've been writing full time for about 6 years now. I pretty much only focused on destinations. So I'd work with like tourism boards, hotels, resorts, that kind of thing. But I think the past maybe year or so, I've been doing more writing about food and drinks and things. And I feel like it's such an interesting window into culture even if you don't speak a word of the language, it's a way to experience the culture in such honestly like an intimate way. Like you're consuming these things that someone's prepared by hand. And I think there's so much like storytelling to be done around food here, but also everywhere, honestly, that it's been an interesting kind of pivot for me. So yeah, I'm enjoying it for sure.
Love that. I always say I feel like food is like a universal language.
Yes,
Like it's something
absolutely.
we can all kind of just like bond over. So
Yeah, For
That
sure.
sounds really exciting. So, looking ahead, how do you see Medellin evolving as a travel destination over the next few years?
It's gonna be an interesting transition. I think that we've started to see it here where more people are coming. Like that stream is definitely now turned into a river of visitors. Like a lot more people are coming. I think that in the past, the visitors used to tend to be more like backpackers and like budget travelers. The first time I visited the city, that's how I visited really. Now I think you're starting to see people at kind of all different levels of the traveler spectrum, so to speak, visiting. Um, there was actually just a really big, like, luxury hotel opening here a couple months ago. There's gonna be another one, I think, in June. It's really kind of, like, has that full spectrum. I think there's also gonna be more wellness travel here coming. I think that there's also been, in terms of spectrum, kind of, like, a lot of, like, hippie travelers who will come and do, like, meditation retreats, and then there's also been people who will come and do, like, beauty procedures and, like, get Botox and none of, like, the in
Does that
between.
do that? I mean, it is much cheaper in Colombia,
It is.
even when you factor in the flights and everything else. So,
Yeah.
you make a trip out of it.
Exactly. No, there's tons of people that do that, and I think that we're starting to see, like, the middle spectrum of that a little bit more, which is gonna be interesting. I mean, wellness travel is such a huge trend globally, but I think that there's a lot of reasons why Medellin is a good place for it. So, yeah, I think we're really just kind of starting to see travel to the city uptick in a serious way, and I think that it's just gonna continue in the coming years, hopefully, so it's
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it's moving towards that direction, especially like you said, with the opening of like luxury hotels in the area. So definitely they are predicting the tourism to continue to grow, which is a good thing.
yeah, I think so, for sure.
But thank you so much, Carly. This has been so fun having you on the show
Thank
today.
you.
How about we do a quick little rapid fire question?
Okay, sure.
Are you ready?
Okay.
So, would you rather spend a full day food hopping through Medellin street markets or have one unforgettable meal at a high end restaurant?
My gosh. This is hard. Like, can I choose both?
You
I
can, you
feel like
know?
probably the answer would have to be, like, market style food just because it gives you such an insight into culture, but, I mean, my stomach is big enough for both experiences in one day.
Exactly. Have one for lunch, one for dinner, you know? Best of both worlds. Now, would you rather explore the city by cable car with panoramic views or wander through the colorful neighborhoods on foot?
Definitely wander. I feel like you get more experiences that way than necessarily the cable car, though I do recommend the cable car, but mostly wandering.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. Although, like you said, it's really nice to be able to kind of see the city from above.
Yeah, for sure.
And would you rather plan every detail of your trip or show up with no itinerary and just go with the flow?
I used to be such a type A traveler where I'd have everything booked to like the minute. I think that I've been trying to get rid of that tendency, but I think if I have to choose one, I would say plan all the details just because I would want to show up with at least some type of a plan, even if I don't end up sticking to all of it. I want to like get some of the recommendations beforehand.
I know, like I said before, I try to be a little bit loose with my itineraries when I travel. And when I say that, I still kind of have a list of the things that I want to see. And I definitely will have like a restaurant already like picked out because I want to eat good. And then I'll kind of like wing it, but I'm not like really winging it because I still kind of have a little bit of a checklist. So,
It
and
sounds
then
like
from
we have
there,
like the same travel philosophy.
exactly. And then like I'll see something and then I'm like, oh, this seems interesting. And I'll, wander here and there. But for the most part, I kind of like to stick to a plan as well.
Yeah, for sure. Agree. A good philosophy to have, I think.
But again, Carly, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank
So if you have
you.
to leave our listeners with one tip in terms of visiting Medellin, what would that be?
One tip? I think just come. That's, like, all I can say. Like, I think that, as I've said, like, people haven't necessarily considered it for many years, but I think that it's such an interesting time to be visiting the city. There's so much to do and so much to see. The real tip would just be put it on your travel bucket list at the very top.
Yes, I'm definitely going to listen to this episode and just start jotting down all the places that you mentioned because they all sound wonderful.
Yes, come visit. We can meet up and go eat good food somewhere.
Yes, I'm so down. And lastly, where can our listeners find you?
Yeah, so I am on Instagram a lot. I use it as much to connect with friends as for journalism, story sourcing, and things like that. It's just my name, Carley Rojas Avila is my handle. I'm active on LinkedIn a lot, also for journalism things. Those two major places.
Amazing. And we'll make sure to also include that on the show notes as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
But thank you so much, Carley, again. And that is a wrap on today's episode of Bamboyash Besties. So, a huge thank you to our incredible guest, Carley, for sharing her insider perspective, travel tips, and all of the reasons why Medellin continues to capture the heart of travelers around the world. I know I'm definitely ready to book a trip. So, from its vibrant culture to its unforgettable food scene, it's definitely a destination that you want to add to your list. So, until next time, besties, we'll catch you on the next episode. Don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share with your travel besties. Catch you on the next episode. Bon voyage!